Hello and welcome to London Leatherboys. This is a new podcast with Josh,
And Jurgen.
and we're going to be discussing all things heavy metal, both new and old. We're going to be splitting up this podcast into three segments. Starting off today, we are doing Echoes from the Past. Together, me and Jurgen are going to pull out two records that we're incredibly fond of from the years gone by, and we're going to discuss it in detail. And starting off today, we've got Jurgen.
Absolutely. So, funnily enough, the two records seem to have come from the same exact city, which is Jonquière in Quebec. And I'm going to be talking about Messiah Force's solo album, The Last Day, which comes from 1987, 2 years after the band formed in 85. And yeah, they've managed to retain their original lineup, which is pretty impressive. Yeah, it's nuts. Like, we saw them together at Keep It True in 2023, wasn't it?
Phenomenal show.
Yeah, probably the best of the weekend, even, for me.
Without a doubt, it was just mind-blowing. And wasn't it like their first time in Europe as well?
Yeah, first European show ever, and I think like second or third show back as a band.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is signed by the guys from, obviously, well, we know when we met them, but of course, these fine folk watching us maybe don't know the story. But yeah, it's just, to me, this is the only album they needed. It was a 10 out of 10, full of melody, really impressive vocals, just everything's perfect in my head about this one. And yeah, I really love it. Canadian masterpiece.
Excellent. And have we got the track listing on the back for that one?
Yeah, of course. Let me just take the LP out so we can see that one. So,
Excellent.
sorry, I've got a bit of glare there, but hopefully everyone can see. It's got the sequel, which is really strong opening song. They kind of did a painkiller and just went in with all guns blazing. Got Call from the Night, Watch Out, White Knight, and Spirit Killer making up this side, or the A side. And then we have Silent Tyrant, Hero Saga, The Last Day, and the third one on the B side, or that side. And I should probably mention this is on Hyzem Records, which is a label I don't actually know if they did too much else. I don't know if you know if they've...
I can't say I'm overly familiar with that label, if I'm honest.
It's not like, Steamhammer, Banzai, Megaforce, like those kinds of labels that you see over and over and over again.
Absolutely. I mean,
It's on a Black LP, I guess it's probably obvious from the year, but... Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I'm just going to cut there.
I think what makes this album quite interesting as well is that they kind of have the lyrics that are maybe a reflection on society, the world, life, that stuff, but it kind of feels a bit more sci-fi in the package, which just, it's not too real world, it doesn't kind of get you down, if you know what I mean. It's got that just, it's a nice escape in there as well, and yeah, it's just killer production. They really have it together, and yeah, I'd love to know if they'll ever do anything again.
It would be nice to see. I mean, because that performance again at Keep It True was just like mind-blowing. Even after a few beers, I still remember it so vividly, and the crowd was just so up for it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it honestly, if my memory serves me correct, it sounded like it was just like from the record. It's like they never aged a day.
Yeah, it's really impressive how much they still have it together. You see bands who have been consistently touring sound that tight.
Phenomenal for them to just come back after all these years, just show up and deliver. And the records that they were selling there, if I'm not mistaken, that's like, it's the first pressing. They just sort of had them, in the attic or something.
Yeah, still in the shrink wrap. They were still sat, like, I had to take it off to get it signed, as I'm sure did you. It was just like, maybe back home there wasn't that interest, and they've just been sat in someone's attic for 40 years, but...
Because again, what was the release year for that record?
1987, so it's just coming up to 40 years in 2 years' time.
Wow, so you're sort of coming towards the end of the 80s. And I feel the trouble is, like, with a lot of bands from that time, is that a lot of record labels were signing these bands en masse to then try and produce the next big thing. And if the first record didn't sell too well, you often just kind of got dropped, or, nothing really much came after.
Yeah, and it was an awkward year to get momentum. The kind of more heavy and stuff of like maybe 84, 85 had lost its momentum, and then thrash was obviously coming in, and
big time.
86, 87, they were just a weird year to kind of try and put something out and gain that momentum when, the big thrash names were just dominating everything.
Absolutely. So I suppose around about that time in Canada, sort of the main band you had really had bringing on sort of in the limelight there was sort of bands like Razor, Annihilator, Voivod, that
Yeah, definitely.
harsher
I mean,
sound.
those bands were really kind of hitting their peak and,
Hmm.
giving the Americans a run for their money with thrash as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I guess as well, it's probably been appropriate time to bring up my record
Absolutely.
from the past. And you know what? From the exact same town, we got Death Dealer. Again, freaking awesome Canadian band. And this is actually the only, well, they do actually have two albums, but their second album they recorded in the 80s, but it only saw the light of day in like 2014. If I'm not mistaken, Cult Metal Classics actually released it, and put it out there. Haven't actually listened to it, but
I was going to say, have you heard it?
no, but this album right here, oh my goodness, it is mind blowing. I mean, I just showed you the particular track that I want to talk about today just before we started the podcast, and that is the actual last track on the album, Caution to Kill. It is just an absolute powerhouse. I mean, look, if you're a fan of like Queensryche and Iron Maiden, if they had a baby, oh my goodness, it is that track in particular, and this album in general. It is just balls to the wall heavy metal. It starts off with this sort of opening, sort of military drum track. I mean, for my ADHD brain, it just, even I can sort of latch onto it. It's a minute of that. It kicks
If you
in.
can stick with a minute introduction, that's a
You,
good sign.
it's worth waiting for. This particular pressing I've got is from Steamhammer. I believe they licensed it from Metal Blade Records. This album, I'm just gonna sort of check. Yeah, it was from Metal Blade Records, and it is just bananas. The album was actually reissued just a couple of years ago, again through Cult Metal Classics, and added two bonus tracks. We got Just One More Day and Dreamers, which admittedly I've not listened to, but if they're anything like the rest of the songs on this record, absolute goldmine. Starting off, we've got Don't Get in My Way, which again is just speed. It's just, again, nothing flashy lyric wise. It's just that typical Don't Get in My Way, I'll kick your ass kind of deal, but absolutely phenomenal. There is a really, really cool instrumental track on this called On the Wings of a Russian Foxbat, which I can only assume is dedicated to the Russian Foxbat, which was a military aircraft. And then also on here we got Sadist, which is again pretty heavy track on here. Getting Ready to Go, again great, but for me, Caution to Kill is that standout track on this record. If you haven't already, go listen to it. It's so easy to find online, whether it's Discogs or digitally. Check it out. It's nothing special on the inside. Again, just black vinyl in a black slip, and that's it. But put it on your table and it's going to blow you away. I'll tell you that. But it's so strange how one town produces these two underground classics,
That was such a weird coincidence. I only realised that as we got on this call. When you said John Creel, I was like, that sounds familiar. And I was just looking at the Messiah Force stuff, and I was like, oh shit, what are the odds? Only 1 year apart as well.
I know, and again, whether it's just bad timing or bad decisions from the label or lack of publicity, these records never really went that far, and neither did the bands. But
It's a shame. So at least in the case of Death Dealer, Steamhammer was I'd never heard of Heisem Records. I think that's the only release I owned by them. Whereas Steamhammer was such a powerhouse in Germany.
oh, absolutely, it's. I'm surprised they at least weren't big in Europe like some North American bands are. It's mind blowing, and they even had Steve Fontano who to mix this album. And for those who don't know, he did the mixing, mastering, engineering for bands like Wasp, Chastain, Racer X, Vicious Rumors. They sort of
Manila Road as well, right?
Manila Road for one record, yeah. So like, it astounds me how this doesn't have more traction behind it. But again, signed with Metal Blade Records. I just don't know. Incredibly talented, but hopefully we could see some more of them in the next few years. Nothing's impossible.
Yeah, well, they are apparently still active and have done like Keep It True at some point. So
Yeah, it would be
who knows?
amazing to see more from them. But for anyone listening to this, we're going to be putting some links down in the comments here on YouTube for how you can listen to these records, how you can buy them, if you can buy them. Check them out. They are phenomenal. Right now, we're going to move on to our next segment, which is called Live, Loud and Lethal. We're going to be discussing some recent gigs that we've been to that just surpassed our expectations and
Absolutely,
just
yeah.
next level, And I think Jurgen's going to kick off that as well.
You want me to kick this one off too?
Yeah,
So I'm going to talk about Thrash Nightmare. I saw many bands, but one that really blew me away was Cruel Force, hot on the heels of their Dawn of the Axe record, which we are both big fans of, I think it's fair to say.
It's fantastic. Really.
It's probably the best heavy metal album of the decade, maybe.
It's a bloody strong contender, Jurgen. I'm going to go ahead and argue my one as well in a moment for the next segment. But that's
absolutely. But yeah, so they had it all, very good stage production. They had the wall of amps, Ingve style, the dry ice, the amazing lights show, which in of itself, that level of attention to detail is something you really want in a heavy metal band that's looking to be more than just like another band on the bill. If you know what I mean, you just have that kind of, they want to play it like it's an arena show, even if it's 500 people.
Absolutely, and I feel like they've got that real passion for heavy metal in terms of what it should look like and sound like. There's
Absolutely.
A lot of bands that can't even get one of those right. You know what I mean?
Too many. Full Force are definitely, like, especially after the hiatus when they came back with a couple 7-inches in that album, which is... I love the Black Thrash albums, but it feels like they've kind of taken a long think about what they want to be doing, how they want to do it, what it's going to look like, how it's going to kind of develop, and it feels, especially like as 4 people, they have just really got down and gone, we're going to take this all the way, and they really are. Like,
it'd be great to see them do some more sort of shows, because again, I think they've been quite selective, which can be a good thing. You don't want to overexpose yourself,
Absolutely agree. Like, I was speaking to Slaughter, the guitarist, a fair few times in person. I interviewed him and stuff. Great guy, absolute maniac for real heavy metal, and he was saying they want to take a few gigs a year, and those just be special gigs that they can put 110% into, and also be the kind of gig I guess they can be proud to be a part of, not playing with just a load of kind of boring bands, but like playing stuff like Thrash Nightmare, where that lineup is just so perfectly curated.
It would be nice to see them, I don't know, maybe even here in England. That'd be quite nice. I mean,
that would be amazing. I'd love to see those kinds of shows. You never know how they're going to do in England. I don't know about you. Sometimes you go, I can't believe how well it turned out, or I can't believe how empty it is.
I mean, one show that really stands out from the last couple of years was Studfest. That did so incredibly well.
Yeah, that was a great all-dayer, and I really wish Alex would do another edition of that, because that was really good fun.
I know, I'd love to see that again. And in terms of, just going back to the Cruel Force show, Thrash Nightmare, was their set list quite varied, or was it mostly a lot of stuff from Dawn of the Axe?
It was, definitely there was a focus on Dawn of the Axe, but they did plenty, they did a couple off the second album. There's still quite a few from Under the Sign.
Yeah.
Not Under the Sign. You know the one I mean.
Yeah, I know what you're referring to.
The one that looks and sounds like Under the Sign. I'm really kicking myself here. The Rise of Satanic Might. There we go. It was Under the Sign of the Moon was the second one. I reversed it in my head. My bad.
I mean, Satanic Might. The riffs on that record is just like. Look, especially that one for Leather and Metal, I think that's one track that anyone who's been into underground heavy metal for the last 15 years, they'll know the riff to that song,
Absolutely. I think that's a very, very far thing. And they actually finished on their cover of Heavy Metal Mania by Holocaust, which they did release on a 7-inch back in 2011. So hearing that live it was such a great kind of just, after, probably 35 minutes of just balls to the wall thrash and speed, having just a new wave of British heavy metal song just bang and out.
That is some good pacing right there, man. Honestly, I really wish I could have seen those chaps. And did they have much in terms of, I don't know, not pyrotechnics, but instead of setting the atmosphere on the stage?
Yeah, I mean, pyrotechnics I think would have just been impossible for anyone who's been to Thrash Nightmare or the Divadlo Pod Caro, however you say it, in Pizek, Czech Republic. Very small venue, probably about the size of the Underworld in London, to give you an idea. A lot of wood, a lot of plywood, so pyro is not possible. However, they did use a lot of dry ice, which, in my opinion, is infinitely cooler than a smoke machine. Just 'cause it sits there, and they had the lights coming through it. The wall of amps, I mean, however many were real, I don't know, but they were playing loud, and like Slaughter had this foot-controlled Moog keyboard, and it just they really did go the whole 9 yards with it.
Excellent, man. That's what I like to hear. So, yeah,
Uh,
if
Sorry
anything,
to the one thing I just got the set list loaded just to refresh my memory. So it's 4 from Dawn of the Axe, 4 from Rise of Satanic Might, and only 1 from Under the Sign of the Moon and the cover. So that'll give you, it's mainly debut and third album kind of split down the middle.
but you know what? I feel like that's what they want to hear, and it's what their fans want to hear too. Great mix.
Absolutely. It went so smoothly. The general kind of flow of the songs was done really well as well. It wasn't just kind of half one then half the other. It was paced very nicely.
Man, that's awesome. It's such a great show, and I really can't wait to see them in the next few years.
Yeah,
Especially,
you need to get it done. Like
yeah,
they will blow you away. I promise.
and I have no doubt about that. So freaking awesome there. And I guess the next thing we want to talk about is a show
Yeah,
that
let's hear about your best show.
well, you know what? It's one that we both went to recently, and that was Morbid in London.
Oh yeah, what a night.
It was a mind-blowing evening. You know what? For me, again, my knowledge and appreciation of extreme metal, as you know, is quite limited.
It's finite.
Finite at best. So for me to be blown away by something, it takes a lot. But you know what? I feel all heavy metal should be theatrical. I think it shouldn't be a bunch of blokes in jeans that just rolled out of bed. I want something that's going to sort of take me out from the day-to-day life, your 9 to 5, your bills. I want to be entertained, and I want to be blown away, and
Absolutely, yeah, of course.
they did that and then some, man. From their singer being brought in on a freaking coffin, all the way to them throwing out a disgusting semler, as the song would suggest, into the crowd, which apparently wasn't too disgusting based on the people that took a bite out of it. But yeah, it was just over the top, all the way to to the crowd chanting to the na 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 na.
Yeah.
Which again, it's a band that again is legendary. I never thought I'd see them play, let alone in London.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought maybe the Stockholm show was going to be that.
And you know what? Even if it was, I mean, hey, a great way to please the fans, but to come to London as well, and it was a sold out show.
Sold out months before.
I know it's not often you can say that for metal shows in London, especially a band from that long ago coming back and just selling it like that. And
300 tickets in Omen.
fantastic. And come on, we've got to mention Speeder as well. They're just,
Absolutely.
of course, good friends of ours, lovely guys, and bloody hell, I can't wait to see more from them. Whether it's
Yeah,
live
from the
shows,
first time we saw them to that show, the growth was just astronomical.
it's like night and day. We can say we saw them. It was called the Hope and Anchor, wasn't it?
That was it. Yeah, it's only probably a year and a half time difference, and it kind of went from a fun but very, very much an amateur new band, a band that was so stage ready.
Honestly, the transition was just immense, and for them to be getting such amazing support slots like that, it was fantastic. I also saw Speeder supporting Tail Gunner at the Underworld in London, and again, phenomenal show, incredibly well rehearsed, confident, ready. They just had the crowd in their hands, and even more so at Morbid. And we of course have to talk about their finishing song, which is a cover of the legendary Heavy Load. They played Saturday Night, which was a very touching tribute to the recently departed Ragnar.
Yep, and on a Saturday night, it was a very, very well timed.
Absolutely, it felt incredibly appropriate, respectful, and what a touching tribute to a metal legend. So again,
Definitely
more respect to the
one that I
Speeder
think
guys.
all of us were absolutely mortified to have lost.
Everyone was so fond of him. Very brief conversations I had with him over social media and in person, all incredibly pleasant. He cared about his fans, he cared about heavy metal, and he cared about Heavy Load. He was a real legend.
Yeah, and he still was, doing so much with his production and his studio, and like you say, just a very pleasant person. When you meet him, he was absolutely lovely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't say enough positive things about the guy.
Absolutely, I couldn't think of a single negative. And again, rest in peace, Ragnar, and his legacy lives on, man. And I'm so
Absolutely.
glad Speeder were able to do a tribute to that. And again, Speeder delivered with their original material, 1 or 2 songs that haven't even been released yet.
Yeah, that was great fun. And I'll also say, I know you're not so fond of the more extreme stuff, but my friends Necromaniac in the middle, for me, I think they're a very strong act of really good black and death metal band, or as they call it, morbid metal. kind of like Mortuary Drape, Tormentor, those kinds of bands. And yeah, I thought they were really strong and very deserving of that middle slot. Again, I'm not going to butt into
No,
your gig thing, but I think they were worthy of mention.
oh, absolutely, and again, for me, not being a large extreme metal fan, even though I came in for the last portion of their set, and again, they were passionate, they were crazy, and what more can I say? Really, not
Yeah, yeah,
fancy
no,
pants for
and
words.
they're great guys. They're very much kind of, I love about those bands that they're the kinds of people I see all the time at gigs when you go to gigs. I don't know about you, but there's when you kind of listen to a band and you like them and you go, I see these guys all the time at Keep It True or
Yeah,
Musical Rock or Metal Magic as fans, regardless of playing it.
I think it's nice to see people that not only play the music, they listen to the music and they live the music.
By all
It's
means,
it's not
I don't
just a
think
Friday or Saturday night, hobby. It's a lifestyle.
when you get those bands and you never see them at shows or buying records, and the only times they kind of talk about or interact with music is their own, it kind of rubs me up the wrong way.
Yeah, I totally get that, man. But again, it's just a bill filled with real maniacs making music for real maniacs.
Absolutely, and that crowd was phenomenal.
Oh my god, it was red hot. Like,
Seeing a London crowd actually kind of
yeah,
act like a mainland European or even a South American crowd, seeing people actually move.
yeah, really giving it the beans.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I was very proud of London.
yeah, a great night all around. It'd be great to see some more, extreme metal, traditional metal coming to London and selling really well. I don't want to see half empty gigs or, it'd be great to see those medium sized venues really starting to fill out. Again, I think we just need another Studfest.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Just mix the right mix of bands, and it can happen. And that gig was perfect proof.
Yeah, maybe we should put something on ourselves, eh?
I love Crimson Storm
Yeah,
gigs. I'd be all about that. I think between us, we all work in various ways in music that we could maybe pull together and do something really cool.
put a little something together. I'm sure that'd be entirely doable. And of course, if I'm not mistaken, you did a review of that gig, right?
I did indeed.
Hey, absolutely. And what was your website handle for that?
So my website is natskog .wordpress.com because I refuse to pay for a domain because that's not very fucking rock and roll.
Yes, sir.
If we could put that in the link for the curious folk, then they can have a read. And I also have a physical magazine called Shrieks from the Abyss, which is a bit more old school.
Yeah, absolutely. Check that out, guys. You want to see more reviews like this in greater detail, whether it's gigs, recent releases, and do you have any reviews of some older albums that maybe people haven't checked out yet?
Actually, no, that's something I really should do, but I try and kind of just stick to reviewing stuff that's new because I feel like there's a point with writing older record reviews where people go, why would I read this when I can just go and listen to it? But never say never. And I definitely interview old bands like I've done Stormwitch, Brockus Helm, Messiah Force. I've done the only English interview that I believe exists with them,
Yeah.
which is 4 of the 5 original members.
Freaking awesome, man. And again, go check out, we're going to put the links down below for Jurgen's reviews. Check it out. Listen to
Thanks
some
for
music.
that.
And now I guess would be a good time to go into our third segment, which is called Fresh from the Furnace. We're going to be
I
showing you
think you
some.
should take the lead on this one.
Hey, absolutely, man. My pleasure. So we're going to be showing you some new records from the last couple of years that have really just sort of consumed our minds and our ears. And for me, man, it is a record that came out in September of last year from the amazing Gothenburg band Helvetets Port. It is, of course, Warlords. I only recently picked this up on vinyl. I've been listening to it digitally a ton last year. One of my absolute favourite releases, not only just last year, but of the last decade. For me, this
It's a killer.
it's heavy metal to the core. I'm just I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. There's only one track on this album that I would say I dislike, and for me that's Mutant March. And even then, it's growing on me, man. I was listening to it earlier at the gym, and I'm like, yeah, okay, towards the second half it really kicks in. But I don't think you could have many greater openers than Black Knight. I think it's a song that they've had the last few years. I think there was a demo for it a few years back, at least on
It's a
YouTube.
great song.
Oh my goodness. It is just. I feel one of the biggest issues that a lot of modern bands faces, they can't really write anthems or songs with catchy hooks, unless your name's like Ambush, you know. Uh, when I hear modern heavy metal, I think it's got to have that catchiness to it, you know. You got to have the bite, you got to have the edge, but you also got to have that real melody that you can sink your teeth into.
I think as well what Helvetets Port are really good at is not just writing a good riff or a good lyric, but how they actually articulate the vocals. And like the pre-chorus in Black Knight, the lyrics are kind of almost offset from the guitar riff, which just really, it has such a good impact. And Swedes are just genius when it comes to that stuff. The Swedish have been masters of it for decades.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I think on previous releases, they've sort of mixed it up, you know, a few songs in English, a few songs with Swedish lyrics. I think there's actually only one song in Swedish on this whole record, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm getting two based on the titles.
Yeah.
Hård för Överman and Helvete på Larfötter
Oh,
being the two.
goodness. Yeah, two songs in Swedish. So, and again, certified bangers. The both.
Yeah, I love both. I think bands singing in their native language when that isn't English is always a green flag for me. Like, it's something I enjoy. It adds a mystique to a song.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's this band that I feel gets everything right. It's the lyrics, it's the theming, it's the music itself, and, you know, the overall image. And, you know, look, based on interviews, YouTube videos that I've seen of the members, it's not just stage props they're wearing. Day by day, they live their heavy metal lifestyle, you know, they look like that. It's something they're passionate about. And for me, these guys are just true maniacs. It's just
Absolutely.
just such a great record, man. And again, their previous releases for a lot of people are quite Marmite. You know, I personally, you know this already. I've enjoyed them for a few years, man.
Yeah, yeah. I see. I like the first two, but I do think I do think Warlords is, you know, so much of an improvement personally.
I feel like they've really sort of found their footing. I feel like they've done a lot of experimenting with previous albums, you know, and at certain points it can be a bit choppy on previous releases. As much as I enjoy it, I feel like this record, Warlords, is just so fine-tuned. And I think they're probably going to continue with that sound going forward, you know?
I think it's just the confidence. Maybe they're a bit more. It's maybe just feels like they've kind of, like you say, fine-tuned it, and that's given them the confidence to really give it their all and give it some welly.
To hone it in. And what I think is so fantastic about them is I think you could show this to a friend who's maybe not got their finger on the pulse of modern sort of heavy metal releases. And if you showed them like the music video example for Rule with an Iron Hand, you could show that to someone, they'll be like, oh, this is straight out from 1986. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
It looks like it's filmed with a camcorder. It's got that old VHS style. It's authentic heavy metal to its core.
And you know it's just coming from such a place of love, like you say. If you watch interviews with the guys, with, you know, you see them around at festivals all the time, regardless of if they're playing, which kind of goes back to what I was saying before. You know that they are fans first and foremost.
Absolutely, and I'm so incredibly excited to see them this year. I think we'll be seeing them at different festivals. I'll be seeing.
I've not got a lineup currently as it stands that they're playing on.
Oh,
I'm yet to see them.
oh, that's such a shame. Well, you know what, man? I'll keep my fingers crossed on that. I'm going to be seeing them this year at Muscle Rock. Very excited for. It's been a long time coming. You know, sadly I missed their show at Live Evil a few years back for whatever reason, and I've been very keen to see them. So it's going to be a long time coming in that respect. For anyone that hasn't listened to this record yet, it is going to knock your socks off. Don't waste any time. Pick it up online or listen to it on any good streaming service. Or you know what? Buy it from the band's Bandcamp digitally. Always goes to help, you know?
Yeah, definitely, especially on a Bandcamp Friday.
Which it is as we're recording this.
It is. My emails have relentlessly let me know about that.
Absolutely, man. And I guess this would be a good point to go on to your modern release that you'd like to talk about.
Cool. Well, I thought I'd bring in some extreme metal just because I'm maybe the guy, you know, I love 80s heavy metal and I love black and death metal, so I thought I'd just bring in something that maybe you just probably wouldn't own naturally yourself.
Yeah, just not on my radar.
And that would be the new Adorior album, Bleed on My Teeth, which is their third album in 30 years of existence. You know, they formed in 94.
Wow, it's Niflheim style releases.
Yeah, and you know, their first album came out in 98 on Metallion, who wrote Slayer Mag's label Head Not Found. 2005 saw the second album, and then 9 years later we got this one with some really good splits in the interim, I might add. And yeah, it's really cool gatefold. 8 tracks, I want to say. Yeah, 8 tracks. Sepulchral Voice and Dark Descent co-released this one, which are two of the better death metal labels around at the minute. And they're one of those bands it's really hard to pigeonhole, because to call them Black and Death, in that they sound a bit like Morbid Angel here, a bit like Blasphemy or Black Witchery there, is true, but there's a lot of Possessed, Slayer, even Merciful Fate and stuff like that in their sound. If you know where you're looking for it and you know the people, they're diehard 80s maniacs, and that like death thrash of the late 80s, and a lot of even things like Queensryche are massive influences on Adorior, even if that may not be overly apparent by just the kind of jackhammer sound that they have.
I must say, you sent me the title track from this record just before we started filming, and I listened. It's 6 minute. It's a 6 minute onslaught, quite frankly. It's
Yeah.
phenomenal. The drums don't give up. But again, even listening to it now, not being an extreme metal fan, I could recognize these people care and love heavy metal. I want to be able to listen to these bands and go, you know what? I want to hear the metal in the death metal.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've got an interview in my fanzine. It's not going to go online anywhere. It's just going to be very much printed only, because that's what's been agreed between me and the band. But they are real diehard, insane heavy metal freaks. Like, I have nothing but respect for these 5 people. And if you ever see them live, I've seen them 3 times now. It's one of the most violent and intense experiences you will see. Like, at the album launch show for this, there were mic stands being launched into the crowd by ex-members who just stormed the stage and were, like, throwing fucking bottles around. It was insane. Like, my friend Ryan put it best, which was by saying that Adorior is the closest any of us in this generation will get to seeing Slayer in 1984. And I think that is exactly what they are.
Absolute chaos. And I suppose as well, do you feel this album differs from previous releases, or is it very on track with the sound they've maintained?
I think so. There's been some lineup changes over the years, and all in good faith. I know that they're on very good terms with the ex-members, especially considering several of them appeared on stage during their set, just as friends, as brothers. The first album, like Cutting the Sleeping, maybe has a thinner sound that, although intended to be a bit more Black and Death, kind of almost ends up sounding more like black metal-y just by virtue of being a single guitar recording and just a bit thinner.
Yeah.
Whereas Author of Incest, the second one, which is the band's kind of, I guess, what they've been known for majoritively, is a much more extreme Black Death kind of crazy release. And this kind of picks up where that left off, but with just a bit more thrash and heavy metal and a bit better production. And I also think Steve Offender, as he's known with Adorior, who's also plays with his own project Krigscure, is a very interesting songwriter and brings some just horrible, discordant, like fucked upness to their songs that just it really works well with the original and older members like Jaded Lungs and Demolester and so forth.
I love the extreme stage names that they've got as well.
Well, I know all their Inhuman names as well, but I want to call them how they are on the record.
Absolutely, man. Total respect.
So, what would be the point when you've got band names like Steve Offender, TNT Tank, and then, ex-members like B Throat Slitter, T Slut Sodomizer,
Pure evil, man.
They're a band, with songs like, Hatred of Fucking Humans, Author of Incest, like, you know what you're getting.
Absolutely, and I feel like the lyrical content, the songs, I mean, it certainly suits the art that they put out, man. And
when people say they want metal to be evil again, I think Adorior is a very, very good example of the kinds of people that, if you ran into in a dark alley, you might be spitting glass if you said the wrong thing.
Hey, absolutely, and we mean that with total respect. And I think one thing that you said to me a little while ago that's always stuck with me is that metal should either sound epic or evil. And if it doesn't sound like
they're the two E's, and I stand by that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, Helvetets Port, you got that epic side, and with Adorior, you got that evil side, man. Truly.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can do both as well, then extra kudos to you.
Absolutely. In fact, I think there was a festival that just happened, I think it might be happening this weekend, Hell Over Hamburg.
Yeah, that's a perfect example where you got bands like Adorior playing next, like, stage to stage with Amethyst, Switzerland.
Absolutely. Then with some good blasphemy, just for good measure, you know.
Yeah, it's that's my idea. I wish I could have gone.
Absolutely. But hey,
'Cause,
always next year, right?
yeah, there's so many. I love seeing a band like Adoria and Amethyst play together, or Blasphemy and Tower, and it's great.
Such a tremendous mix of bands, you know, something that we should probably go next year, man. That'd be
Yeah,
fantastic.
well, let's look into it.
And again, I'd like to based on this conversation alone, I would love to see Adoria next time they're kicking about in London. Let me know.
Yeah, I mean
I'll be
they're
ready.
a London band. It's never going to be hopefully too long to wait.
Yeah, absolutely. When was the last time you saw them? It was quite recently, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it was in, I think it was October, November. It was when this album came out. It was also their 30th anniversary as a band. So they played with Massacre, Verkalag, and Poland's Imperator, which is perfect lineup, and it was nuts. Same, it was Boston Music Room, which is now downstairs of the Dome, same venue as Morbid.
Of course.
Packed as well, very good turnout for that one.
Man, that's really the extreme metal venue at the moment.
It is. I think it's just because it's slightly less central than some of the others that it maybe the rental fee is a little bit easier to buy for promoters.
Yeah, man, awesome. And again, I think this would be probably a good place for us to conclude. Um, Again, we're going to put links down in the description for all of the bands we've mentioned today. Some links to, of course, Jurgen's various heavy metal ventures that you can read about, listen to, or even view here on YouTube.
Maybe you should put in a link for our band together, Dungeon Shaker,
Oh, we got to have the shameless plug there. In fact, I've actually got one of those demo tapes just here, Jurgen.
which are very, very, very sold out. So if anyone wants to offer us each £10,000 for our own personal copies, I could be convinced to part with it.
Hey, absolutely, that's some Discog pricing right there, man. But yeah, we're going to be putting links down in the description for everything, and you can find us on our social medias. For me, it's Instagram, Josh_Stormwind, and for Jurgen,
It's just Natskog, Nattkskog. Nice and easy.
absolutely. We're hoping to do a few more episodes of this. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment if you'd like to. It certainly helps, and yeah, we'd love to put some more.
We'd love to hear what you guys' top shows are as well. Best shows, best old, best new releases.
Absolutely, give us some suggestions. Maybe there might be something that's
Yeah.
not even on our
Do our
radar.
work for us. Tell us what we should talk about next time.
Exactly, make it a demand. But yeah, man, thank you guys for listening, and we'll be back next week.
Keep it metal.
Keep it metal.